All right, everyone. Kind of in the middle of my Liberty University series about my time as a college student, I just wanted to do a quick top five list for everybody out there, especially those who are on the cusp of, either graduating high school or trying to figure out if they're going to college or not. Because honestly, I think times are different from when I graduated in 2009, which was almost 10 years ago in regards to higher education, because honestly, if things were the way they are now, like I don't even know if I would have went to a college campus. I would have most likely stayed at home and did online schooling, because it definitely has grown over the past, almost the past decade. So first off, let me just talk about the two things, and this isn't even in the top five list, but I had a friend of mine who went to Liberty University's campus a semester before I did. For some reason his paperwork was able to go through, but mine wasn't. Not calling this guy out, but I'm just saying in general, like, he was able to attend Liberty during the fall of 2009. I wasn't, due to financial aid paperwork crap. And of course, after I started working there, I realized that behind the scenes stuff really does suck in some aspects. But I remember asking him, "Is like, hey man, any advice before I go up there for as a student?" He gave me two pieces of advice that stuck with me even today, even if though I'm not a student. It's number one, be early for your class. Number two, don't get hit by cars. That's pretty much it. And that's pretty much all I needed. So in this top 10 list, top five list is in no particular order. I just want to talk about some of the key things that I learned as a college student, because really it's like another step of your life. Number one, how to budget. I mean, that's a given, because at the time, I think the only time I worked during school, not counting summers now, not counting summers, but I mean like during the actual semester, I think, there was a time where I had an online internship for an education website, and I was, making money off of that. But, whenever like we would get like the meal swipes on campus, or like meal points and whatnot, and selling back textbooks and things of that nature, and even my parents put money in my account, you just learn how to budget. Like, personally, I'm not a picky eater, and as a person growing up, I know what Shasta tastes like. I know what off-brand cereals like. And when I got to a certain point in my life where I don't care how broke I am, I'm not going to resort to eating that stuff again. I'm getting Frosted Flakes. I'm not getting the Food Line brand where it's like so little sugar on it. It's like not even a frosted flake, but barely even a glazed flake, and Mountain Dew instead of Mountain Lightning. Yeah, I was that kind of guy. Like, I was like, I'm not going back to that. Like, even now as an adult, I make sure I stock up on stuff, getting that name brand. I mean, that might seem a bit bougie and whatnot, but come on now. When you get your mouth set on a certain specific brand of food and drink, you don't want to regress, because you know what it was like, especially, going to black cookouts and whatnot, family members, the ones who would bring the off-brand sodas, but then they'll be the ones chugging down the name brand kind. You know what I'm talking about. So definitely budgeting taught me a lot in regards to setting up just like a list of, my expenses and whatnot, areas I can cut back on, areas I can improve in, those kind of things. Budgeting was definitely one of the top five things. Number two, definitely work hard. Hang on. Work smarter, not harder. That was one of the biggest things, because it is easy to wear yourself out trying to do every little thing on your to-do list. But when you kind of sit back, reflect, and think about what is the most effective way I can get something done, it's not always about the fastest way to get something done. It's the way that, I think this was said on Barbershop 2. I know it was like the corrupt mayor or whatever. He was saying that Jimmy, who was working in his office now, he said, son, it's better to measure. Hang on, I'm trying to remember. I haven't watched the movie in a while. Son, it's better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times. I was like, dang, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't really understand it when I first heard it, when that movie came out, but looking back, it does make a lot of sense. It's better to check yourself 10 times over before making a move than to only check something once and then have to do it 10 times over. So yeah, definitely think before you act. Work smarter, not harder. I think one of the top lessons I learned was from one of my communications classes. The professor had a video. I think it was like like on a game show or something, or a talk show, and there was like a dog, and it was like he filled the floor with, like, blown up balloons, And he made the analogy of like, look what the dog is doing. He's kind of panicking, but then he realizes, you know, I'm going to have to go after one balloon at a time so I can get them all popped. And that really stuck with me because my professor, he said like, look, I get it. You're in the midst of like midterms and finals and whatnot. And then, you know, picking what you're going to do next after you graduate. So it's very easy to feel stressed, overwhelmed, doubtful when you see everything that you have in front of you that you need to accomplish. But you can't let that stop you. You need to just focus, not worry about one thing at a time. It's easier to knock off things on your to-do list. That's one thing I love doing, having a to-do list. You know, like I have a list of like videos I need to do. I'm actually editing my budget right now in terms of like the bills I have per month. That way I can better focus my account, you know, like, you know, my spending and whatnot. And okay, do I need to put more videos on YouTube to get more views, to get more money, that kind of stuff. So it's really a sign of satisfaction because number one, when you have a to-do list, whether you print it out, put it over your desk, or have it in a notebook, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by looking at all you have to do. But then there's a breath of organization because it's like, okay, I have everything I need to do written out so I know what to do. And then there's nothing like crossing out each thing as you go through the list because it's really a sign of achievement and satisfaction. So definitely, if I were to pick a top one, number one, that would be it. Like, take things one thing at a time. Next thing is doing things on time, not just getting to class on time, but doing your assignments on time, because of the fact that making excuses definitely doesn't leave a good impression. It's like, I always have the attitude where you're such a diligent worker or a student to the point where if you don't turn something in on time, your professor reaches out to you, not because they're going to, you know, harass you for it. It's like, you didn't turn in your paper on time. It's like, be so consistent with your work that if you mess up one time, your professor reaches out to you and asks like, hey, what's wrong? It's like, I noticed your assignment wasn't in on time. Is everything okay? Because of the fact you're such a good student. And then there have been times where I explained to my professor, you know, like my computer went out, or like the C lab was closed, or something along those lines. Because anytime I didn't turn in a homework assignment on time, it's because there was a good reason. There was never because I was too lazy. There was always a legitimate reason why I wasn't able to turn something in on time. And also, if you find yourself in that situation, definitely let your professor know. It's better to let your professor know something 48 hours or less before a deadline than to wait at the deadline or after the deadline. And I'll definitely do a video talking about, as an academic advisor, some of the top 10 things I learned from that job. And then finally, finding that balance between being a student, being a person, and, you know, living your life. And that's one thing I wish, if I went back to college, that would be one thing I'll probably change, like being more social and being more involved in the school. Like, you know, yes, I was in a bunch of like clubs and organizations. I got a bunch of degrees, but I feel like I really didn't do as much social, you know, mingling and whatnot as I wish I had. I did a lot of networking, but in terms of like having fun, you know, I enjoyed college, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I could have and should have. So overall, those are my top 5 things I would advise people to do in regards to what I learned from college. Hopefully, if you're opening the door to that chapter of your life, I hope that you take some of these things to heart, and you probably will experience things I didn't, and you'll have your own top 5 or top 10 list to share someday. So as always, you know, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I have plenty of various related topics, whether it be music, news, movies. Definitely have an Infinity War review video coming up once I see the movie, hopefully within the next 48 hours.